The crimson-scale delegation materialized in the pristine halls of Luna Station with an arrogance that filled the air like poisonous gas. General Kixthon, towering over the assembled human diplomats with his 8-foot frame, regarded the gathering with the same disdain he might show to insects crawling across his path. His 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern across his elongated skull, swept the room with calculated contempt. Ambassador Roth Valdez stood quietly at the center of the human delegation, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. Years of diplomatic service had taught him to read between the lines, and everything about these Xerion visitors screamed supremacy and threat. The translator device hummed as General Kixthon began his pronouncement. Primitive beings of the Phi. Third planet. Kixthon's voice resonated through the chamber like grinding metal. The Xerion hegemony has observed your pathetic expansion into territories that border our ancient domains. Your species lacks the wisdom to recognize superior authority when it presents itself. The General's aide, a smaller Xerion with nervous twitches, activated a holographic display showing human colonies scattered across several star systems. Red markers indicated which settlements the aliens deemed too close to their borders. Nearly half of humanity's frontier outposts were marked for abandonment. You have 7 of your rotations around your star to withdraw from the marked territories. Kixthon continued, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. Failure to comply will result in the complete sterilization of these colonies and the subjugation of your homeworld. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning. Ambassador Valdez stepped forward, his calm demeanor unchanged despite the magnitude of the threat. General Kixthon, we appreciate your direct communication style. However, I believe there may be some misunderstanding about humanity's position in this matter. The Xerion general's quad eyes focused on Valdez with sharp amusement. Misunderstanding? Your species broadcasts its internal conflicts across space like mating calls. We have observed your political divisions, your resource struggles, your limited technological capabilities. You are children playing with fire while adults discuss the fate of galaxies. Behind the diplomatic facade, Valdez felt a familiar steel resolve settling into his bones. He had faced down warlords, dictators, and cosmic threats before. These scaled bullies were just another item on a long list. General, you seem to have gathered quite detailed intelligence about us. Tell me, in all your observations, did you notice something interesting about human history? Kixthon's aide whispered something in their guttural language, but the general waved him off dismissively. Your primitive wars and conquests hold no interest for a civilization that has ruled the stars for 10,000 years. Then you missed the most important lesson. Valdez replied, his voice carrying a subtle edge that made several Xerion guards shift uncomfortably. Humans don't just fight for territory or resources. We fight for principles, and the principle at stake here is simple. No one dictates where humanity can or cannot build our future. The general's scaled features twisted into what might have been a smile on his alien face. Bold words from such a small species. Very well, Ambassador. Your defiance has been noted and will be remembered when your colonies burn. As the Xerion delegation prepared to depart, Prince Veltar, the youngest member of their party, lingered near the diplomatic table. Unlike his elders, curiosity seemed to drive him more than contempt. Ambassador Valdez, he said, in surprisingly good English, why do your people choose conflict over survival? My studies of your species suggest you value life above most things. Valdez turned to face the young alien, seeing something different in his expression. Prince Veltar, isn't it? You're right that we value life. But we've learned that some things are worth dying for, because without them, life loses its meaning. Freedom is one of those things. The prince nodded slowly, his 4 eyes showing genuine thought rather than dismissal. My grandfather conquered 47 species. All of them eventually submitted when faced with superior force. Then your grandfather never met humans, Valdez replied with a slight smile. We have a saying, give me liberty or give me death. Your people might want to research the context of that phrase. 3 weeks later, Captain Jenna Cross stood on the observation deck of the human mining station Prometheus, watching the void between the stars with tactical eyes that missed nothing. The station orbited a barren moon rich in rare Earth elements, far from the major shipping lanes but crucial to humanity's expanding infrastructure. Cross had been expecting this moment since the ultimatum expired 2 days ago. Her sensors had detected the Xerion fleet while it was still light hours away, giving her precious time to prepare. The enemy formation was impressive: 12 heavy cruisers, 30 escort frigates, and a command dreadnought that could probably crack a planet's crust with its main guns. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Zara Nightwind from the communication station, "we're receiving a transmission from the approaching fleet. It's General Kixthon." "Put him through," Cross ordered, straightening her uniform. The same arrogant alien face appeared on the main screen, his expression even more contemptuous than before. "Human insects," Kixthon began without preamble. "Your time for compliance has expired. Evacuate your illegal settlement immediately, or be destroyed with it. You have 1 of your hours to decide." Captain Cross stepped into view of the transmission, her stance radiating the confidence of someone who had spent 20 years in space combat. "General Kixthon, I'm Captain Jenna, Cross, commanding officer of this facility. I have a message for you from Earth Command." The general's quad eyes narrowed. "Speak quickly, before I lose patience with this charade." "The message is simple," Cross replied, her voice carrying across the communication channel with crystal clarity. "Come and take it." The transmission cut to static and Cross turned to her crew. The mining station's personnel had been reinforced over the past 3 weeks with some of humanity's best tactical minds. What the Xerians saw as a helpless outpost was actually a carefully prepared trap. "Battle stations," Cross commanded. "Signal. The hidden flotilla. Operation Wasp's Nest is now active." The Xerian fleet approached with the confidence of predators closing in on helpless prey. General Kixthon stood on his command bridge, watching the human station grow larger on his screens. The facility appeared to have minimal defenses, just as their intelligence had suggested. "Begin the demonstration," he ordered. "Target their power generators first. I want them to watch their lights go out before we finish them." Energy beams lanced across space, brilliant spears of destructive force that should have turned the human station into expanding debris. Instead, the beams struck shimmering barriers that absorbed and redirected the energy harmlessly into space. "What?" Kixthon snarled. "How are they generating shield power of that magnitude?" Before his weapons officer could respond, space around the Xerian fleet erupted with activity. Ships that had been hidden behind asteroids and debris fields suddenly appeared, their hulls gleaming with advanced stealth plating. The human vessels were smaller than the Xerian ships, but they moved with a fluid grace that spoke of superior maneuvering capabilities. "Impossible," whispered the general's aide. "Our sensors detected no fleet presence in this system." Captain Cross's voice cut through the chaos on the Xerian command frequency. "General, you made the same mistake that every bully makes. You assume that because we don't look like you, we must be weak. Let me show you how wrong you are." Human ships attacked in coordinated waves, their plasma cannons firing in patterns that confused and overwhelmed the Xerion targeting systems. Each human vessel seemed to know exactly where its companions would be, creating a deadly dance of firepower and evasion that the larger alien ships couldn't match. Lieutenant Nightwind coordinated the assault from her position aboard the station, her fingers flying over holographic displays that tracked every ship in the battle. "Phoenix Squadron, break left and target the cruiser's engine clusters. Raptor Wing, maintain your harassment pattern on the escorts. Don't let them form up." The Xerian formation, designed for overwhelming enemies through superior firepower, found itself scattered and confused. Human ships appeared where they shouldn't be possible, struck with devastating accuracy, and vanished before the aliens could respond effectively. General Kixthon watched in growing horror as his forces took damage that should have been impossible. "How are they predicting our maneuvers? Their technology level is inferior." His tactical officer, studying the readouts with increasing alarm, provided an answer that chilled the general's scaled blood. "Sir, their ships appear to be sharing targeting data in real time. They're fighting as a single coordinated organism rather than individual vessels. Our protocols have no counter for this type of warfare." As the battle raged, Prince Veltar observed from the command dreadnought's secondary bridge, his young mind processing what he witnessed. The humans weren't just fighting desperately for survival. They were fighting with joy, with creativity, with a passion that transformed warfare into art. "Uncle," he called to General Kixthon over the communication system, "perhaps we should withdraw and reassess our approach to these humans." "Never," Kixthon roared. "No inferior species will humiliate the Zirion hegemony." But even as he spoke, 3 of his heavy cruisers limped away from the battle with critical damage, their crews working frantically to prevent complete system failures. The human fleet, meanwhile, had suffered only minor damage to their shields and armor. Captain Cross appeared on the main screen again, her image transmitted to every Zirion ship in the fleet. "General Kixthon, this is your only warning. Leave our space now, or we'll send you home in cargo containers." For the first time in his military career, General Kixthon felt something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. These humans were supposed to be primitive, easily conquered. Instead, they had turned his demonstration of force into a humiliating tactical defeat. "This isn't over," he transmitted back to the human captain. "The full might of the hegemony will return to finish what we started here. We'll be waiting," Cross replied, her smile visible even across the communication link. "And next time, bring more ships. You're going to need them." As the battered Zirion fleet retreated into hyperspace, Prince Veltar made a mental note to study everything available about human military history. His people had just encountered something unprecedented, a species that fought with both intelligence and passion, combining superior tactics with unbreakable will. The young prince suspected that his uncle's promise to return with greater force would only lead to an even more spectacular defeat. Humans, he was beginning to understand, were not the primitive species the hegemony had assumed them to be. They were something far more dangerous. They were innovators who turned every defeat into a lesson, every challenge into an opportunity to grow stronger. And they had just declared the Zirion hegemony to be their next classroom. 6 months after the humiliating defeat at Prometheus Station, the Zirion hegemony's War Council convened in the obsidian chambers of their capital world. Admiral Corvex, supreme commander of the hegemony's military forces, stood before a holographic display showing the disposition of their assembled fleet. Never in 10 millennia had the hegemony committed such overwhelming force against a single species. 2,000 warships, Admiral Corvex announced to the gathered commanders, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Every available vessel from 17 sectors. The humans will face the full might of our empire, and their pathetic resistance will become a cautionary tale for the next 1,000 generations." General Kixthon, his scaled hide still bearing scars from the previous encounter, stepped forward with barely contained rage. "Admiral, I request permission to lead the vanguard assault. These humans have made this conflict personal, and I intend to personally oversee their annihilation." Prince Veltar observed the proceedings from his position among the junior officers, his 4 eyes tracking the deployment patterns with growing unease. During the months since their first encounter with humanity, he had studied every available record of human warfare. What he had discovered filled him with a dread that his elders seemed incapable of understanding. Meanwhile, in the depths of Luna Station's research complex, Dr. Phoenix Reed worked frantically alongside her team of human scientists and engineers. The warning from Prometheus Station had given humanity precious time to prepare, and they had not wasted a single moment. Banks of quantum processors hummed with activity as they refined calculations for weapon systems that would have seemed like magic to previous generations. "The new plasma matrices are showing a 97% efficiency rating," reported her chief assistant, running diagnostics on arrays of crystalline components. "The Zirion shields won't even slow these down." Dr. Reed nodded, her attention focused on a different set of readouts. "Excellent. But remember that firepower alone won't win this war. We need to think like humans, not like them. Creativity over brute force. Adaptation over rigid doctrine." Captain Jenna Cross stood in the tactical command center that had been hastily constructed in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Around her, holographic displays showed the positions of nearly 800 human vessels, each one a masterpiece of innovative engineering and adaptive design. Unlike the massive, standardized ships of the Xerion fleet, every human vessel had been customized for specific roles in their overall strategy. "Captain," Lieutenant Zara Nightwind called, out from her expanded intelligence station, "we're receiving updates from our deep space monitoring network. The Xerion fleet is beginning to move. Their formation is impressive." Cross studied the incoming data with the calm focus that had made her legendary among human commanders. The alien fleet stretched across several light years, advancing in waves designed to overwhelm any conceivable defense. Traditional military doctrine would recommend immediate retreat or desperate negotiation. Fortunately, humans had never been particularly traditional. "Signal all commanders," Cross ordered. "Operation Prometheus Rising is now active. Phase 1 begins in 36 hours. Ace pilot Tessa Blackthorne sat in the cockpit of her customized fighter, running final checks on systems that represented the cutting edge of human aerospace engineering. Her ship, like all the others in her squadron, was equipped with AI assistants that could process tactical data faster than any biological mind. But the AI didn't make the decisions. It simply gave human creativity the tools it needed to work. "Miracles, Tessa," came Captain Cross's voice over the communication system. "You and your squadron will have the honor of first contact. Show them what human pilots can do when we're properly motivated." Blackthorne smiled, her hands moving over the controls with the fluid grace of someone born to fly among the stars. "Copy that, Captain. Let's give these scaled bullies a proper welcome to human space." The Xerion Armada emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their massive vessels arranged in battle groups that had conquered countless worlds. Admiral Korvax stood on his flagship's bridge, watching the tactical displays with satisfaction. Long-range sensors showed scattered human ships fleeing before his overwhelming force, exactly as expected. "Begin the advance," he commanded. "Maintain formation integrity. We will demonstrate the futility of resistance through systematic destruction of every human installation in this system." What Admiral Korvax didn't realize was that the fleeing human ships were not retreating in panic. They were taking carefully calculated positions throughout the solar system, preparing for a type of warfare that the Xerion military had never encountered. Prince Veltar monitored the communications traffic from his station aboard one of the escort carriers, his enhanced hearing picking up subtle patterns in the human transmissions. Unlike the rigid protocols of Xerion military communications, the humans seemed to be engaged in casual conversation, discussing tactics with an informality that would have been considered insubordination in any proper military force. "Uncle," he called to General Kixthon over their private channel, "the human communication patterns are unusual. They don't seem to be following standard military protocols." The general barely glanced at his nephew's concerns. "Primitive species lack proper discipline. Their chaos will be their downfall." But Veltar wasn't convinced. The more he listened to the human chatter, the more he realized it wasn't chaos at all. It was jazz, improvisation built on a foundation of shared understanding and mutual trust. Each human commander knew their role, but they were free to adapt and modify their approach based on real-time conditions. The first phase of the battle began when Tessa Blackthorne's fighter squadron emerged from behind Jupiter's largest moon, their ships gliding silently through space on momentum alone. Passive sensors guided them toward the Xerion vanguard, where massive dreadnoughts advanced with the confidence of apex predators. "Remember," Blackthorne transmitted to her pilots, "we're not trying to destroy them in this pass. We're gathering data and testing their response times. Make your shots count, but your primary objective is to return home with intelligence." The human fighters struck like ghosts, their weapons targeting specific systems with surgical precision. Xerion point defense systems designed to handle conventional attack patterns struggled to track the smaller ships as they wove between the larger vessels with impossible agility. Each fighter seemed to know exactly where its companions would be, creating a three-dimensional dance of destruction that left the alien commanders stunned. "How are they coordinating without detectable communication?" demanded Admiral Korvax as his ship's targeting systems failed to achieve reliable locks on the human fighters. His tactical officer studied the sensor readings with growing confusion. "Sir, they appear to be using quantum entanglement for instantaneous communication. Our jamming systems are completely ineffective." The human fighters completed their first pass and vanished back into the void, leaving behind Xerion ships with damaged sensors, compromised communication arrays, and crews that were beginning to understand they faced something unprecedented. General, Quixthon snarled his frustration as damage reports flooded in from the vanguard. A handful of fighters cannot defeat a fleet of this magnitude. Order all ships to advance at maximum speed. We'll overwhelm them through sheer numbers. But as the Xerion fleet accelerated deeper into the solar system, they discovered that the human defenders had prepared more than just fighter squadrons. Captain Cross had spent months studying Xerion tactics and weaknesses, and she had designed a strategy that turned their strengths against them. Phase 2, she announced to her commanders. Activate the maze. Throughout the asteroid belt, hidden human installations came online simultaneously. What had appeared to be natural asteroid formations suddenly revealed themselves as sophisticated weapons platforms and shield generators. The Xerion fleet found itself navigating through a three-dimensional labyrinth of energy barriers and defensive positions that channeled their massive formations into predetermined kill zones. Impossible, Admiral Corvex roared as his fleet's advance slowed to a crawl. Our intelligence indicated minimal human presence in this system. Dr. Phoenix Reed's voice cut through the Xerion communication channels, transmitted from her hidden laboratory deep within the asteroid field. Admiral, Corvex, this is Dr. Phoenix Reed, Chief Weapons Designer for the Human Defense Initiative. I wanted you to understand what's happening before your fleet is completely destroyed. The alien admiral's quad eyes focused on the communication display with murderous intensity. You dare to threaten the Xerion hegemony, primitive? No threats. Dr. Reed replied calmly. Just education. You see, your people make excellent weapons, but you've forgotten how to innovate. Every ship in your fleet follows the same design principles, uses the same tactical doctrines, responds to threats in predictable patterns. You've become victims of your own success. As if to emphasize her point, human battleships emerged from concealment throughout the asteroid field. These weren't the sleek fighters that had harassed the Xerion vanguard. These were vessels that incorporated technologies the aliens had never seen, weapons that bent the laws of physics in ways that should have been impossible. Lieutenant Nightwind coordinated the assault from her command position, her enhanced neural interfaces allowing her to process tactical data from hundreds of sources simultaneously. Dragonwing, target the command ship's engine clusters. Phoenix Squadron, begin harassment pattern 7. All ships, remember that we're not just fighting for territory. We're fighting for the right to exist as free beings. The human battleships opened fire with weapons that defied Xerion understanding. Quantum cannons that phased through conventional shields. Plasma arrays that adapted their frequency to overcome defensive countermeasures. Missile systems that used artificial intelligence to outthink and outmaneuver point defense systems. But the most devastating weapon humanity deployed wasn't technological at all. It was psychological. Prince Veltar watched in horror as the Xerion formation began to disintegrate. Commanders who had never experienced defeat were making increasingly desperate decisions. Ships that had fought together for decades were breaking formation, each captain trying to save his own vessel rather than maintaining unit cohesion. This is impossible, General Quixthon repeated like a mantra as his own ship took damage from weapons that seemed to strike from every direction at once. We outnumber them 5-1. Captain Cross appeared on every Xerion screen simultaneously, her image transmitted through quantum channels that bypassed their communication security entirely. Numbers don't matter when you're fighting for the wrong reasons, she said, her voice carrying across space to reach every alien crew member. You came here to conquer and subjugate. We're fighting for our families, our freedom, our future. That makes all the difference. The tide of battle turned with shocking swiftness. Xerion ships that had seemed invincible found themselves outmaneuvered, outgunned, and outthought at every turn. Human vessels coordinated their attacks with a precision that seemed almost telepathic, while the alien fleet struggled with communication disruptions and command failures. Admiral Corvex realized with growing horror that his overwhelming numerical advantage was becoming a liability. In the confined space of the asteroid field, His larger ships couldn't maneuver effectively, while human vessels moved through the maze of obstacles with the fluid grace of creatures born to the void. "All ships retreat," he ordered, his voice carrying across the fleet communication channels. "Fall back to minimum safe distance and regroup." But Captain Cross had anticipated this moment as well. As the Xerian fleet attempted to withdraw, they discovered that the maze had another function. The same energy barriers that had channeled them into kill zones now prevented their escape. They were trapped in a cage of their own making, surrounded by human forces that showed no inclination to grant mercy to would-be conquerors. Tessa Blackthorne led the final assault, her fighter squadron weaving between the massive alien vessels, like deadly butterflies. Her ship's AI had learned the Xerian point defense patterns and was feeding targeting data to every other human vessel in real time. What had begun as a demonstration of superior firepower had become a complete tactical collapse. "Admiral," Prince Veltar called out over the chaos of the command bridge. "We must surrender. Our forces are being systematically destroyed." Admiral Corvex turned his quad eyes toward his young relative with something approaching madness. "The hegemony does not surrender. We are the conquerors of galaxies." "Not anymore," came Dr. Reed's voice over the communication channel. "Your empire ends today, but your people don't have to die with it. Order your ships to power down their weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your crews will be treated according to the Geneva Conventions, which I suspect is better treatment than you've shown your conquered peoples." The final moments of the Battle of Sol played out with inevitable certainty. Xerion ships, their weapons systems disabled and their crews demoralized, began surrendering in groups. Admiral Corvex, faced with the complete destruction of his fleet, finally gave the order that no Xerion commander had ever been forced to issue. "All ships, stand down. Prepare for boarding." Prince Veltar found himself aboard Captain Cross's flagship 3 hours later, part of a small group of Xerion officers who had requested asylum from their own empire. The young alien studied the human command center with fascination, noting how different it was from the rigid hierarchies of his own people. "Captain Cross," he said in his carefully practiced English, "I must ask you something that has troubled me throughout this conflict. How did your species develop such advanced technology so quickly? Our intelligence suggested you were centuries behind us in military capability." Cross smiled, the expression carrying warmth that Veltar had never seen from a military commander. "Prince, you made the same mistake that every empire makes eventually. You assumed that because we did things differently, we must be doing them wrong. But humans don't just adapt to challenges. We transform them into opportunities." She gestured toward the holographic displays showing the aftermath of the battle. "Your people built an empire based on conquest and suppression. Every species you defeated became a resource to be exploited. But humans learn from everyone we meet. We don't just take from other cultures. We synthesize, we innovate, we build something new from every encounter." Lieutenant Nightwind approached their conversation, her expression thoughtful as she studied the young Xerian prince. "Your people will have a choice now," she said. "You can try to rebuild your empire and continue the cycle of conquest and defeat, or you can join the community of free species that humanity is building. We prefer cooperation to domination." Prince Veltar nodded slowly, his understanding of the galaxy shifting with each word. "And if we choose cooperation? Then you'll discover what humans learned long ago," Captain Cross replied. "Freedom isn't just the right to be left alone. It's the opportunity to become something greater than you ever imagined possible." As news of the Xerian defeat spread throughout the galaxy, other species that had lived under the hegemony's rule began to stir. Rebellions erupted on a dozen worlds. Subject peoples who had accepted slavery for generations suddenly remembered what it meant to be free. The Xerian hegemony, built over 10,000 years of conquest and maintained through fear and superior firepower, collapsed in less than 6 months. Not because humans destroyed it, but because they had shown the galaxy something that the hegemony could never understand. They had shown that freedom was contagious. Dr. Phoenix Reed stood in her laboratory, months later, working alongside Xerion scientists who had chosen to remain in human space. Together, they were developing technologies that neither species could have created alone. Cooperation, she reflected, was indeed more powerful than conquest. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson about humanity. They were not just another species to be conquered or dismissed. They were innovators, teachers, and liberators who transformed every challenge into an opportunity for growth, and they were just getting started.